Welcome and thanks for joining our webinar today, where we're excited to discuss the secret to accelerating data understanding with natural language. My name is Brian Zwallen, and I'm the SVP of Customer Success at Arria, and I'll be your host for this event. So our agenda today will kick off with a little context around who we are as individual professionals and organization. And we'll discuss our solution to empower your organization with actionable insights to facilitate faster decision-making. And we'll touch on our tech suite that shows the various ways you can deploy our solution that truly scales. And then we'll jump into a live action demo today in a Power BI dashboard. And finally, we'll close out with some time for questions and answers. So let me introduce who will be presenting today. This is Doug, our training and development specialist at Arria. He works with us at developing the various success plan courses that are available to our customers for learning our solution. And you may have seen him on our Getting Started videos. Doug, welcome to the program.
Hello, everyone, and thank you.
All right, so a little bit about Arria and the value we aim to offer through our solution. Arria NLG is the recognized global leader in natural language generation, or NLG. We specialize in extracting insights from complex data sources and then communicating the knowledge that's learned through natural language. Arria's research center is located on the campus of Scotland's University of Aberdeen, with our primary business office in the United States and regional offices worldwide. Our chief scientists, Dr. Ehud Reiter and Dr. Yaji Sopata, are two of the leading figures internationally in the NLG space. And they mentor a team of 10 PhDs in artificial intelligence disciplines, such as NLG and data science. Arria NLG is an artificial intelligence technology in that it replicates the human process of expertly analyzing and communicating insights about your data. Using our solution provides your organization with accurate, consistently excellent, non-biased commentary at machine speed and massive scale. In a recent Gartner report, they state that data storytelling helps decision makers engage with data and analytics by delivering insights in compelling forms that are readily consumed. And 75% of stories will be automatically generated through technologies like NLG. So the value that NLG brings to your organization is instrumental. Using Arria NLG, you deliver real actionable insights without the need for interpretation. And you gain efficiencies through the automation of analysis and writing of reports, and free up your valuable employees from doing those kinds of robotic tasks. You achieve consistently excellent, non-biased commentary with the ability to scale and then democratize the knowledge throughout the organization. And with our out-of-the-box capabilities, you're going to see a very quick return on your investment. And I work with our amazing customers and partners that invent all kinds of ways to harness the power of NLG. And this slide speaks from our customers on the value they've realized using Arria NLG. BBC says in a one-click process, they were able to take raw data and automatically generate news stories at speed and scale. The Bank of New York Mellon significantly reduced the amount of time writing reports and then freeing those employees to have more time in interacting with their customers. And Ernst & Young provides more accurate and consistently excellent reports for their customers. If you navigate to our website by typing arria.com/everywhere, you'll find a list of use cases from customers and partners. And when you mouse over these tiles, you're going to see more quotes for your review. At Arria, we have a vision of NLG everywhere. In order for us to empower organizations to expand their use, we've developed several channels here where NLG can be accessed. And it's all supported by Arria NLG Studio that sits on top of the stack. So for instance, if you're using our custom extension in a BI dashboard, whether that's Power BI or Tableau, TIBCO, Click, or MicroStrategy, your data will flow from the dashboard through Studio, which analyzes the data, and then it passes the commentary right back into the dashboard. In just a few moments, we'll look at Arria NLG apps, which gives you the ability to create narratives without any code. You simply select a few dimensions and measures, click a few config buttons, and then select what type of analysis you're interested in. We'll also look at Arria Answers, and it takes this a step further. So if you're looking to drill down even more than the provided type or integration into Alexa, you can ask about your data, and it will return in natural language. Aria Connect allows your developers or partners to connect our solution with many other systems, including your own bespoke solution. Aria for RPA, or robotic process automation, allows you to build an end-to-end solution where you potentially can pull data from disparate data systems and pass insights on the data to any presentation layer, including maybe email. And there are 1.1 billion Microsoft Office installs, which equals to a lot of Excel users. With Aria for Excel, you're able to augment complex analysis with commentary directly embedded in the worksheet. And the add-ins for dashboards and the add-in for Excel are available today for you to try. You can just download it. If you go to aria.com/technology suite, or you can just go to aria.com and click on the technology suite. You'll see all the icons here and you can explore any of these add-ins. And then just to recap, it all runs through Studio, and we've made this very accessible through APIs. So you can see on the left, wherever your data source is located, you connect through an API connection. The data will pass securely through SSL. We'll analyze the data and then generate the text and pass it back down through that API securely to whatever presentation layer of choice. The data is not stored in Studio. It gets flushed after we generate the narrative. Oh, cool. So Doug, you know what? I've said everything I need to say today. Why don't I just pass the controls over to you?
Thank you, Brian. Okay, let's get started. So I'm going to provide a demonstration of how you can use Arria apps. As Brian mentioned earlier, the software is available at aria.com/apps, and then that will point you to appsource.microsoft.com where you can download it. The dashboard that I'll be displaying today is also available at aria.com/apps, and then you can locate whichever showcase that you want to see. It's actually one of several that really showcases all different types of dashboards. So we're not limited to just sales performance. We have one that's geared toward HR data, expense information, IT budgeting. So we're not really focused on just one type of data. It's really quite flexible. So here you see a dashboard with several visualizations. You have some dynamic KPIs across the top and several tabs across the bottom, which is typical of a Power BI dashboard. But what sets this apart from other dashboards is the Arria NLG narrative that's right here. It provides additional insights into the underlying data and has the ability to drill down dynamically into more specific information. It also provides filters, so you can filter the data set like these. So right now I'm focused on 2018 data, but I have the ability to change the year and filter the data accordingly. So it provides filters, so you can filter the data set to provide insights into a filtered amount of data. Now, starting with actually the last webinar and today, we are now introducing Arria Apps 3.1. And this new version includes 2 new reports. So I wanted to show you a breakdown of those narratives, and here they are. So this is just a link to our documentation. I'll show you how you can access this at the end. But we did have 6 narratives. We now have 8. And what our goal is really to generate the types of narratives that businesses need to immediately provide value. So this list is going to continue to grow as we listen to our customers. You'll see during this comprehensive webinar that, that they provide valuable insights for many types of data. So the first thing we're going to look at is this first tab, which is Explore Intelligent Narratives. And we're going to work our way across. The first one and the last one both include custom narratives. What a custom narrative is a narrative where you have complete control over every word that's in the narrative. The out-of-the-box narratives, which I'll be demoing, are the ones in the middle. And those just require a quick little wizard that you walk through and it builds the narrative. So really quite flexible, but this showcase file is really going to provide a demo for all of our types of narratives. So this first one, this tab displays several charts with a custom narrative to the right that provides deeper understanding. The narrative provides analytics using several dimensions and measures for actual sales variance by country, So here you can see it, and it really provides details and drills down into each country for all the products and markets between November 2018 and December 2018. And then, after it gets through those, it provides another report, actual sales results by country for December 2018, showing a trend analysis that identifies significant trend changes in actual sales. So it's really quite comprehensive. But as you can see, as you look at this narrative, it isolates and points out that Keradian, which is one of the products, is really the main contributor. So as you look at this narrative that was built, you then have the ability to drill down. So here's a listing of those products, profit by product. So as you might be familiar with using Power BI, I can click on this one product. It updates this graph, but so does the narrative. So give it a second to update. And now you can see that the narrative has been rebuilt and it's focusing only on Keradian. So now you're looking at the same narrative, but with a completely different data set as it builds that narrative. So it's important to note that these narratives are based on back-end data. One thing I can show is if you click right here, very familiar with Power BI, click on the Data tab, and now you can see the actual underlying data. So it has 1,764 records. These are our fields. So I think we have 5 measures and 4 dimensions, and then they're defined over to the right. So this is the underlying data. And of course, as Brian said before, we do not store your data anywhere. It's really just connecting to it, creating narrative, and passing it through your presentation layer. So then this is the result. You can also right-click on your narrative and choose Show as Table. And now you can see the narrative in a larger window, and you can actually see the records that were used. And as you can see, only Keradian is listed. So as you drill down into your data, you can see that the narrative is only reflecting these records. So that really shows quite well how that back end works. Next, I'm going to take a look at the next tab. And now we're going to start taking a look at the out-of-the-box narratives, where it's not a custom narrative, but the narrative is built very quickly and quite easily using Arria NLG. So this is our Analyze Sales Performance tab. The first narrative uses a narrative called Descriptive Statistics. And in this case, it's complementing a tree map visualization. So this one up here at the top. And as you point to it, it's this narrative right here, tree map. And this particular visualization shows fairly well. It's a breakdown of your actual sales by market and product. As you can see, departmental has the most real estate in this visualization, then brand store, then online, and then chemists. So kind of provides that visual for you to show you the breakdown. But here, of course, is the narrative that provides additional detail to it. So note that the narrative added country to provide an additional level of detail. So here we see its actual sales by market and product. But if I click on the narrative over to the right, you can see that this one added country to provide additional insight in addition to actual sales, market, and product, which was used at the top. So that kind of shows how the narrative complements the graph that's above it. Next to it, we have a time-based variance narrative. And this all is explaining these different types of narratives. So the first one we did was descriptive statistics, and now we're working over to time-based variance. So this time-based variance is showing the variance between Q3 and Q4 for 2019. And this is complementing what they call a decomposition tree visualization. And this one's pretty cool as well. What this visual does is it shows the ability to drill down. If I were to maximize it, and you can do that by clicking here, going into focus mode, you can then click on each visualization and it would show you only the product records for Q1, then you could drill down into Q2. Well, this narrative pretty much does the same thing. So this type of visual shows off the ability to drill down, and just like the time-based visualization up above does. So it contrasts Q3 versus Q4 as well. and it uses 3 products to explain the variance. So as you scroll down, you can see that Carotene, Rutine, and Neutrality are the products that are listed. It's not going to list all of the products. It only lists the ones that contributed the most. How does it do it? I'm going to quickly go into the configuration. And to do so, I'm going to click on focus mode, go into full screen so you can see the narrative and then how we modify it. So here you'll see the 3 ellipses that you can click. This brings up the menu where we can go into the configuration. So I'm going to click on NLG apps. I will then authenticate. So now I am authenticated and I can go into NLG apps. Okay, here's the configuration. So here you see the fields and they are listed here as well. And this shows that quarter is detected as a dimension, so is product and year, and then our measure is profit. And then if you look at the next step, and this is really just a 3-step wizard. I'm going to click next. This is a time-based variance. And here you see, as I mentioned, there were 3 products listed. So rather than displaying all the products, you have the power to control this. So you can choose 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. We also have the ability, and we're going to do one from scratch on another tab. So I'll go over this in more detail. But you also have the ability to choose coverage where you're using a percentage. You can say only the products that contribute up to a certain percentage. And that's more AI driven because it's a calculation that happens in the background rather than just a flat number. And then when you click next, you then choose the verbosity of the report. You can choose either a quick summary, which is very quick, just provides the main details, important things, which provides a little bit more detail. Tell me everything would actually really, it does a breakdown showing all of the products. So it depends on how much detail you want. And also keep in mind how much real estate you want this narrative to take up within your dashboard. So that'll help determine how much space or how much detail you want to display. And we'll do one from scratch on this tab right here. So that's coming up. Next, we have a target-based variance. So that's the 3rd type, and this one is analyzing the variance between 2 distinct measures. So here we have actual sales, and you can use an alias, so it just says sales, versus target sales. And when I click on it, you can see there are our 2 measures, target sales and actual sales, including product and market. And then within this, you can see that it listed 2. So it all depends on that configuration. How many of these products do you actually want to display? And you also have the ability to display a different dimension. Right now it's choosing product and it's based upon this order. So if I listed market first, you could then change the priority or the focus of the narrative by focusing on market instead of product. So again, that shows the flexibility in your narrative. Next, I'm going to move over to describe charts. Now here you can see that there are 3 charts going across the top. So you have your standard pie or donut chart, a bar chart, and then a line chart. And again, these narratives are basically set up to complement the chart that's above it. So here we have a pie or donut chart, and this narrative is using the pie chart type. And it performs an analysis of one measure, in our case, cost of goods sold, by one dimension, in our case, market, displaying as percentages, and then explains the significance of any outliers. And this one's kind of unique. If you click Show as Table, now you can really see, cost of goods sold for these 5 markets was 82.7, and you can really tell, that is logical. The largest contributor was departmental. So here you can see the correlation. It really is the underlying data that these charts or these narratives analyze. Next, we have a bar chart. Getting a little more on the technical side as we progress to the right. A bar chart will analyze measures, in our case, actual sales, over combinations of dimensions, in our case, market and product, providing analytics on any variances. And in our case, the narratives provide detail for the main contributors, which are departmental brand store, and online. So here you can see those are the three main contributors. And in the narrative, departmental, brand store, and online. So a very nice logical correlation between the chart and the actual narrative. Now this chart is focusing on market. So we do have the ability to kind of change the configuration. I mentioned that earlier, you can go into the configuration and change the focus of the narrative. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to go into NLG apps, quickly authenticate. I'll choose NLG apps. I am now authenticated and I can go into the configuration of it. And I'll go into focus mode. Okay, now you can see why market was listed first within the narrative. So if I just want to change the focus of this, maybe I'm a product manager and I want to focus on the product instead. Now I listed product first, and I can keep clicking next, or I can just click on that third step. All right, this might just need a quick refresh, but I can generate the text and come back to that in a second. Here, the visual is focusing on actual sales. Let's say I wanted to change that. I'm going to change that from actual sales to profit. Now you can see that this actually did update. The title bar did not. So what you can do, you can go into here, you could change that title bar and put profit instead. So that's always easy to update. But then I can do the same with my narrative. Over to the right, and keep your eye on this. This will switch to product. I want to do the same thing with the narrative and focus on profit instead of actual sales. So I'm going to change this from actual sales to profit. It will recalculate. I'm just going to turn it off and turn it back on again. There we go. And product is listed first. So as expected, just a little refresh, and there you go. So now this is focusing on profit. I can change the title bar, of course, as I mentioned earlier, and this is focused on profit. That's how easy it is to change the narrative and change the focus. And if I were a product manager, now it's focused on product. So pretty cool stuff. Next is your line chart over to the right. And it as well is focusing on profit. This, of course, includes an element of time. So it's showing profit by month across the market. So here you can see the trend analysis for our profit and broken down within the market. So if you were to display this full report, here we go, I can go into focus mode. It analyzes profit for each market in descending order and then performs a statistical analysis by month. It then shows correlations down at the bottom where profit patterns are similar. So brand, store, and departmental are similar as you look at the actual visualization. So those are three more of the narrative types. You do have the ability, just keep in mind, based on the verbosity of the narrative that you select, you can change the fonts a little bit. Maybe you just wanted to conserve a little real estate here. You can then go into formatting options and decrease the font if you'd like. So as you can see, that's decreasing. So you have the ability to change this. You can change the color background as well. And we expect sometime in the near future the ability to change the actual font too. But that's maybe more geared on the Power BI side. But nevertheless, we have the same fonts throughout and keep everything consistent. Okay. The next tab is Analyze Trends and Ranking. These represent two of the new narratives that are now available in version 3.1. And these were pretty much a game changer when I first saw them. The first one is a trend analysis. And as you can see, when you look at this, this is profit by month, so months across the bottom. And as you look at it, it makes sense. We dipped a little here, it increased, it spiked, and then it went down, and then a continuous increase. But when you look at this, it really doesn't provide any details. How did it increase and where, in which markets, and which products? Well, that's what this does. So now when you look at this, this app generates a narrative that analyzes the changes in trend of a measure over time. It highlights significant shifts, and then you can drill down through multiple dimensions. So this narrative shows the value of profit month by month within 2020. So that is the time frame selected here, and identifies 3 trends that should be analyzed. So here you can see May to September. That's the biggest trend, and it puts that one first. Then it shows the April to May, so that decrease, and then you can see the last one, February to April. So it's really just showing 3 trends here, but the most significant ones. And then when you go into the configuration of this one, you can see that there is a measure here where it's called the trend change percent. And it's just a percentage where you can select a threshold that defines, well, what is that trend change percentage that you should include? Don't include all of them, but only up to a certain percentage. And that would be in the configuration. Also note that consecutive time periods where the trends are moving in the same direction, those are merged into one trend, like we see here. So all moving in the same direction, you don't explain different components of it, it's all one trend. Next to it is a ranking analysis app. So what this one does is a very useful one. This app generates an analysis of changes in the ranking of dimensions over time as they relate to a measure. So our measure here is profit over time. So you can note that there are no changes in ranking when you're considering these markets. They're fairly consistent. If you look at, I think that's departmental, is fairly much always the top ranked item. And the narrative explains it. Departmentals remain the top ranked market. So let's go ahead and change this a little bit. We're talking about profit by month and market. So I'm going to change the field market to product. I'm going to get rid of market, add product instead. Now you can see that we definitely have a lot of changes going on with this. Would you want to do the analysis of this? Let's let Arria do it instead. I'm going to change this from market to product. It now analyzes it. And now you can see, once it quickly updates here, that camoweed, which is green, and caradian, which is yellow, were most frequently top ranked. And here the analysis says so. So it shows that change in the ranking and provides a little bit of detail, depending on how much detail you want to show in those changes in ranking. So another very useful app. Keep in mind that these narratives are really going to shine when you're looking at your own data. So right now you're looking at the data that we built within this showcase file. But when you start looking at your own data, it starts doing this kind of analysis of your data, then you're really going to see the added value in this. So let's build one from scratch. So here on the Configure Intelligent Narratives tab, we have the ability to create one from scratch. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So here's a narrative that was already built. I'm going to remove it. So I'll click on these 3 dots, choose Remove, and we'll build one from scratch. Now, if you download one of these showcase files, you're going to see that the Arria icon is already available. If you were to do this from scratch, you would get it from here, more visuals, and then you get it from App Source. But this one already has it, so I'm going to go ahead and give it a click. And I'm just going to place it well on the screen in a display that fits well for this particular file. Now it's just a matter of, now that we have the placeholder, to select your fields. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to choose actual sales. This is actually going to be a time-based variance narrative. So I'm going to include actual sales, product, there's product, country, and year. Year is, of course, under date. You get all the different variations of date. Since this is just going to be a year variance, I'm going to get rid of day, month, and quarter. But keep in mind that since this is going to be a year variance, I need to include more than 1 year. So always very important, keep in mind the data that you have selected, you must have the right data to create a narrative, in particular, showing variance between two different years. So then now I have the right data selected. I'll go ahead and authenticate, choose NLG apps. You notice that Arria Answers was listed below it. You always have the ability to create an Arria Answers panel or even switch to it. You have the ability just to switch to Arria Answers here too. We're saving that for the next tab. So, but just be aware that that option is there. I'm going to go ahead and go into focus mode, and let's configure our narrative. So here you can see all the fields have been selected. Actual sales, of course, is a measure, and it is a measure that we want to display in currency using US dollars. Now you can also be creative here. If I were not talking about money, I could leave this blank. Let's say I were a university and I was talking about the number of students in my university. That could be my unit. So you do have the ability to be creative when you're working with NLG apps. I'm going to choose currency and keep that as US dollars. Also indicate that an increase in this value is good. If I were talking about cost of goods sold or expenses, I would of course choose bad. And you would note that the language used would reflect that it's something that needs to be managed. So in this case, actual sales and increase is good. Product is a dimension, we're keeping the defaults. Country is a dimension, I'm going to indicate that it's a location, and then it'll reflect that properly in the language that's used. And then year is a dimension. So that's step one. Clicking next. Based on the fields that I have selected, it tells me which narratives are available. I can't do a target-based variance because I don't have two measures. My only measure is actual sales. So this should all be logical when you look at the narratives that are available. It's based on the fields that you have selected at the time. I'm going to go ahead and create a time-based variance. And my time-based variance is going to show actual sales over the period years. So 2019 versus 2020, comparison is latest versus previous. Now you saw this option a little bit earlier. I can choose entity selection and just list a specific number. So if I were to choose 3, I would see 3 products. Notice it's the next item listed as in my explanation. So I'm going to go ahead and preview. Choosing important things, I chose 3, and I see 3 products. So there you go. I'm going to go back to the previous screen. Let's take a look at the other option, which is coverage. The default is 50%. If I were to choose a very high number and go to the next screen, you're going to see most of the products. Makes sense. Clicking previous, I'm going to keep this somewhat low. Maybe I just want only the significant contributors to display within my narrative. And this really gives you a lot of control. By choosing a percentage, consider you might have a lot of products and you want to list main contributors only. This is very similar to how a sports broadcaster might provide a summary of a basketball game or a football game. That broadcaster will not summarize every player. That might be ridiculous. Only those players who contributed a significant amount to that win would be mentioned. So you can control the number of contributors by adjusting this threshold in your out of the box narrative as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click next. It's a much smaller list. That was the main contributor. I'll go ahead and click generate text. My narrative is done. It's comparing 2019 versus 2020 and only the main contributor. And if you keep in mind that if you're connected to dynamic data, this narrative will always show the most current information. So there we go. This shows the backend data. So if I click on that, these are your main contributors. And let's see, yeah, you're gonna see Glower in there quite a bit, but probably the highest numbers in actual sales. So that is your out-of-the-box narrative configured. I want you to remember the different options that you have to control the narrative content. We got a few. You can prioritize the field listing. So this order that you see here, or within the configuration. So change the order of your fields. You can choose the narrative type, and there are 8. so 8 narratives. You can change the verbosity of the report. Where available, you can change the coverage, that percentage we just mentioned. You can, and where available, change the attribute order. You'll also notice back on the first tab in the descriptive statistics report, there was an option to change the attribute order, or the other option was let us decide. Let us decide is a very common one that's selected. That's where Arria uses AI to decide the main contributors. But again, an option that you can choose. You can also indicate a unique unit, like I mentioned, university students. You can change the unit. If it's not currency, you can use any unit that you like. And then finally, if you do want complete control over every word of your narrative, you can build a narrative by obtaining a studio account, where you learn how to build your custom narrative by yourself or on your own using Arria Studio. So if you contact your sales representative, you could then do that as well. So that shows you how you can build a narrative from scratch. The last item that I want to show off before we take a look at our grand finale on the last tab is Arria Answers. Arria Answers is another component of Arria Apps, so it's bundled together. And this allows you to ask questions of your data. So you're going to note that it's on a separate tab here. You don't have to do it this way. As I showed earlier, you can take any of our narratives and switch to Arria Answers. In our case, I would be switching back to NLG Apps. Note that with this selected, I have 2 years, so I can ask anything about 2020 and 2019. Of course, I could just change the slicer. So it depends on what you want. And also note that these are all the fields that have been selected based upon the list over to the right. So I can ask any questions regarding any of these fields. So let's go ahead and ask a few. What are my actual sales? Notice that actual sales is a measure and it's automatically added to the drop-down list. Give it a click. That ensures that the syntax is listed properly, and it gives you a quick overall actual sales of 288 million. So now I can ask a few more questions. What are my actual sales of routine, which is a specific product? I'm pressing the tab key to put in the field and keep going. In Canada, notice it already found Canada. So I'll hit tab, press enter. That's how you can do it more quickly, combination of the tab key and the enter key. Overall actual sales in Canada for routine, 5.34 million. So that represents all of the actual sales. This is just a more precise amount. I'm going to ask which product had the highest actual sales in 2020. So not 2019, just one specific year. So in 2020, that was Karadian. Maybe I want to drill down a little bit deeper about and get some details about Karadian. So what drove actual sales versus target sales? So now we're talking about variance for Karadian in Canada. Question mark is understood. You don't have to type it. And this one provides a really nice analysis. Overall actual sales in Canada for Karadian are higher than target sales by 1.44 million or 10%. And it provides the different markets as well as the offset that provided that variance. So a nice amount of detail as you ask these types of questions. It's important to note that variance queries like the one I just did must include specific words. Change, changed, vary or varied, versus like I used, or trend. These different words signal that it's a variance type of question. Note that the answer will display or always properly state the country name. In our case, it says in Canada. In some cases, it'll say Canadian actual sales. So that alludes to two things. We use variation in our answers. If I were to ask the same question for every product, you wouldn't want every answer to look exactly the same. That would be robotic. So it provides a little variance. It'll fluctuate the wording so that it's more human and when you read it. Also note that the country names would be reflected properly. Canada does not require the word the in front of it. However, the Netherlands does. So it'll always properly state those country names. Also, if the value that's returned in the answer is 0%, you can expect that the response will use proper phrasing. Rather than there were no values or it might say something like there were no values at this time, rather than returning a value like 0%. So it's more human in terms of the response. Nouns and verbs are always inflected properly depending on the measure that's being described. For example, the product was versus the products were. So it's based on the measure that's being aggregated. So this is a level of expectation that you can have using Arria NLG. Arria will conjugate words properly so that as your data changes, the proper linguistics will always be used. Last but not least, the last tab, a little bit of our grand finale here. This one is also a custom narrative, but we wanted to show off the ability to show multiple reports all on the same screen. So here we have a custom narrative that displays 3 narratives at once. So here we see sales. This has the ability to break down sales by product, by country. This will update and show the entire narrative again based on country. There we go, as well as market. Next to that, we have a few other reports. So if I were to click on cost of goods sold, hold down the control key and click, we have another report. Click on profit, we have another report. So keep in mind that you might have limited real estate on your dashboard. You have the ability to use what we call these bookmark buttons. And here is the underlying action. So I'm on profit, and there I just selected profit from the drop-down menu. Here is cost of goods sold, and this one's the main report within that studio project. So that's actually called main. So really shows off the ability to display multiple narratives all within the same screen. So of course, keep in mind that these narratives and Arria Answers will really shine when it's analyzing your data. We do have other dashboards available. So if I were to click here, this is back at the Arria website under PBI Gallery. Here we have the different dashboards available. So we have one for cost expenses. There's one geared toward human resources, retail store, global fulfillment. So we're not locked in on just one type of data. We can use multiple types of data. Here is a great little website that shows off dashboards. And when I first saw this, thought this was great. You know, it's showing, according to this author, many great dashboards. What these do is they display KPIs very well. No, thank you, I don't want to sign up. So here we see, you know, very good at showing KPIs, but do they provide meaning? Do they show details? Here's Fitbit. Here's patient records. So the thing that really stands out when you look at what are considered to be great dashboards is, do you have the ability to drill down? Are there details provided? That's what your narratives using Arria can do for your narratives, provide that kind of insight into your data. So now you can see how Arria narratives and Arria Answers can help to accelerate data understanding with natural language in your dashboards using a no code required out-of-the-box solution. Keep in mind that as technology is trending toward big data and data mining, it's important to remember that Arria for Power BI can connect to live data. So if you put this into your website and point to live data, it would always reflect the most current information. Then it would reflect the most current information all the time. Deploying this kind of artificial intelligence to your Power BI dashboards will allow your data analysts to focus on more critical data. Also note, when I click on the 3 dots, you can always click on documentation. This will take me to a browser. I'll let it go ahead. Here you can see all the details, our release notes for the most current version. Here are those narratives that we talked about, a tutorial, great reference information, and it really tells you how to get started. So keep in mind that we are constantly upgrading and adding new features. So this is version 3.1, and we will continue to add functionality and features as this disruptive technology continues to grow. So that's it for me, Brian.
All right. Thanks, Doug.